George Clooney has built an incredible career by successfully mixing commercial blockbusters with artistic risks. His latest project falls firmly into the latter and is very close to our hearts here at CBS. Clooney directed, co-wrote, and co-stars in Good Night and Good Luck, which looks at how legendary CBS anchor Edward R. Murrow took on communist-hunting Senator Joe McCarthy. And George Clooney is with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Most people alive have don't even know who Ed Murrow was.
Right.
Why'd you choose this?
My father was an anchorman for 30 years. He was Murrow was a high water mark for broadcast journalists, all of them. And so he was a big part of my history growing up. And I thought it was an interesting time to at least have the debate again about responsibilities that he held so dear.
Yeah. McCarthy, you have to set the stage. It's the early 1950s. Everybody in America is scared to death of the communists.
Right.
McCarthy is running on a white horse, charging around, tilting at anything that moves, the shadows in the dark, because the communists are coming to get us. And Murrow says, this guy's full of baloney.
Well, it was an interesting thing. Murrow was never, he wasn't an anti-communist. Right. He actually was sort of, he was very much against communism. What he was more against was the idea or the method, which eventually the Republican Party was also against, which was to take away civil liberties.
Sure.
To find these people. Yes, there were communists infiltrating some areas of government. Not many. Alger Hiss, a couple of guys.
Yeah.
But the bigger issue was that you have to be allowed to face your accuser, and that's what Murrow's argument was always constitutional.
He was going after a Democrat. Well, I saw it at a screening here in New York. Every news person in the city was in the room. You were there. Yeah. What did they tell you afterwards?
Well, that was the. In the scheme of things, we opened at the Venice Film Festival and we opened the New York Film Festival, and those were big high points in your life and your career because they were really well received at both times. The much more intimidating was that room full of newsmen, because that's the big harsh critics. And for us, it was quite something to have Morley Safer or Walter Cronkite or Tom Brokaw or any of the guys come over and tap you on the shoulder and say, you got it right.
Got it right. Got it right. It's interesting because the battle in the newsrooms, we think of that time back then as being as simpler in some way, because here is Murrow, who's clearly on a crusade, but he's fighting with his bosses. He's fighting with Bill Paley.
Right.
Let me run this clip.
Okay.
And it shows that were it ever thus. Things never change. Take a look at this.
Been represented rather well for the last couple of years.
To the Air Force, they haven't gone on the record.
Forego the standards you've stuck to for 15 years? Both sides, no commentary?
We all editorialize. It's
just making sure we identify what it is you're
giving them the information up front, and we're asking them to comment on it.
Fred, hold on, Fred. I've searched my conscience, and I can't for the life of me find any justification for this. And I simply cannot accept that there are, on every story, two equal and logical sides to an argument. Call it editorializing if you'd like.
It is editorializing.
They're going to have equal time to defend themselves.
Do you understand the position you're putting us in?
We are all in this together. If the Senate wants to investigate...
Do me this favor, Fred. Avoid any big speeches about how we're all in a big boat together, okay? Please don't insult me.
This fight goes on today. The fact is 5 shows after he confronts Joe McCarthy, his show's off the air.
Pretty much. It took a little bit longer than that, but in general, he eventually lost his sponsor.
Right.
It's the same arguments. You know, he had in 1958, he did the famous, well-known speech for broadcasters called the Box of Lies and Wire speech. It's the same fight that you fight, that every newsman fights, which is commerce and information.
Honestly, I watched the movie and I sat there and I felt ashamed. Because, no, he fought. He literally fought. He was willing to sacrifice himself to this in order for an important story, for the truth to come out. And I'm not so sure there are enough of us around anymore, or any of us around, who are willing to do the same thing.
I don't know. I disagree. I think that if there was that story, and you've had those fights, and you've walked into a news director or into a network office and said, look, you got to do this. I think the only difference is that there aren't 40 million people watching one person anymore, so that you won't have the same effect.
Yeah.
You know, Cronkite was the last that had that.
Had that kind of an impact when he came back from Vietnam, and it completely shifted the American.
Yeah, you look at Johnson said, I'm not going to run again because if I've lost Cronkite, I've
lost everybody. Yeah, wow. It's such a good movie. It is such a good movie. It's a little, like in the choir, and I'm you know, it's kind of awestruck by it, but everybody, the audience is you can't get a ticket in New York.
Yeah, well, that's all my family members that buy them, so that doesn't...
Well, will you come back when you do the CIA movie?
Yes, I will. I'm going to come back, I think, in about a month or so.
All right. We'll talk to you then about all the other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, if your head falls off. Thanks so much. Put your microphone away. All right. Now here's